Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. Our campaign is The Curse of Nineveh. It was written by Mike Mason, It was written by Mike Mason, Mark Latham, Scott Dorward, and Paul Fricker, and it's available from the Chaosium website. I'm the GM, and this is episode 5. Our recap will be given by John Byram. So, without any further delay, let's continue our journey into the darkness. John?
Thank you, Tom. When last we encountered our investigators, they were intensifying their investigation into the curious statue and unexplainable horrors that had befallen so many who were involved with the Nineveh expeditions. Vadim and Reginald decided to travel to the home of Nevi Selsavan. There, they met Nevi's former roommates, Bingo and Honoria Pinker. The Pinkers told our investigators that Nevi had moved out and left no contact information. Her room contained nothing more than a few loose articles of clothing. Our investigators were, however, made aware that Bingo and Honoria were being watched by mysterious men from the street and street corner. 2 men, though never both present at the same time, had been keeping a close eye on their comings and goings. The Pinkers have no idea who these men are, or who they work for, or, most importantly, what they want. As the investigators left the home, they were surprised to see one of the watchers had taken up a position at the corner. Reginald and Vadim were able to interact with the man, though he was far from courteous. As they drove away, Vadim watched in the rearview mirror as the mysterious watcher seemingly made note of the tag number. Meanwhile, Felix, Cyrus, and Fuller took a trip to King's Cross to visit an antique shop known as Sweet Relics, a small, dimly lit shop sandwiched between a butcher and a barber. The trio tried to find out more about the statue Nevi had presented to the team. The ringing of the small bell that dangled above the door summoned a curious-looking man. Short, full-figured, and bandaged on head and hand, Mr. Karl Schweinsauger appeared from the back to greet his patrons. Schweinsauger was familiar with the statue, and the memory of Nevi stirred some strong emotions. He referred to her as a tiger woman, and claimed she had brought him great trouble. He informed them that the bandages were due to Nevi attacking him, and that since her visit, he has been followed by strange men who watch his every move. He spoke adamantly of the statue she presented as pure, godlike evil. The 3 continued their inquiry, and the curious shopkeep provided a plethora of very interesting information. He spoke first of the 1903 Thompson-King expedition, the expedition where much of the British Museum's current Assyrian display originated. He felt that Thompson had an ulterior motive on that expedition, to locate the Temple of Nabu. Thompson failed to find what he was looking for on the 1903 expedition, but a mere decade later, with the death of his partner, King, Thompson got a second chance. Based on the existence of that statue, Schweinsauger said a return trip to Nineveh by Reginald Campbell Thompson in or around 1919 was highly likely, and that on this trip, he found what he was looking for, the Temple of Nabu. The team was then told that a member of the expedition was still alive, although terribly mad, Mr. Peter Simpkin. "I heard another name whispered," said Schweinsauger. "Guido." Armed with the information, the trio reunited with Vadim and Reginald at the Wentworth, each group presenting their findings to the other to be sure everyone was fully informed. The group then decided to travel together to the home of Peter Simpkins. A rap on the door was answered by a meek and troubled voice that simply cried, "Go away, please, just go away." The team tried numerous approaches to coax the scared man from his home. The mention of Nabu seemed to intensify his fear, and his stress doubled when the name Thompson was spoken. Fearing the consequences of an extended badgering of the scared and obviously troubled Simpkin, the team felt it best that they simply do as he asked and leave him alone. Felix placed a calling card with a smiley face in the mail slot, and the team made their way back to the Wentworth. In the interest of his personal safety, Reginald took one of the private rooms at the club to sleep in for the night, worried his home may have been compromised by the mysterious stranger that noted his tag number. The other investigators left the club and each headed home. A slight detour by Felix took him past the house of Peter Simpkins, fully illuminated inside, where a very troubled man sat alone, scared to death. fighting against an unknown enemy within himself.
Excellent. So, where did we actually end? Were you still outside, or did you go back to the Wentworth Club?
We had all gone home. That is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And Reginald, you were sleeping at the Wentworth Club. Did we do the dream?
Yes, you can call it sleep, but I don't think I slept at all. I spent the night on a black plane, hunted by some unseen beating wings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's next morning. I assume you're all meeting at the Wentworth Club, and all of the rest of you notice that Reginald is quite visibly paler, and he has circles under his eyes, and he's very distracted by he looks tired.
Oh, wow, Reginald, you all right? Looks like you had a rough night.
Yes, I didn't. So I slept very poorly. I haven't slept well for the past few days, but last night was a nightmare. I thought that if I got that thing out of my home, that I could relax, but it's not. It's persistent.
Do you actually think it's a direct connection between having that statue in your house and your nightmares, or is it just your nerves?
I'm sure it's the association of the violent murders and the grotesque nature of that thing. But I would like to purge myself of these terrors. And I think the only way we're going to do that is by finding out what's going on here. I trust there's nothing in the papers about anything bad happening to Mr. Simpkin.
No.
Or any other notable crimes reported?
Just regular old usual things.
Do we contact the clipping house and see if they've found anything that we asked them to research?
Well, what in specific were you looking for?
Oh, well, one was the information on the other gentleman that went with Campbell Thompson, Reginald Campbell Thompson.
Okay.
Peter Simpkin, I believe.
That's the only way we know about it, but there presumably were others.
Yeah, anybody, the names of the people that were on the digs.
All right. There are a number of names listed as going with Reginald Campbell Thompson on the 1903 dig. Some of them are prominent names, that became, university professors and so forth like that, all over the place. But nothing in particular. I mean, you've got Reginald Thompson Campbell. You've got Leonard King, Campbell Thompson. You've got Leonard King. Those are the only names that still stand out to you. And Peter Simpkin doesn't seem to be on that list.
And also, I think a cross-reference of all the members and all the deceased members, if there were death records for.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Was there an exorbitant amount of?
Well, there were probably about 30 people in that whole party.
And out of
22 years ago, so some of them are going to be dead no matter what.
Right. I just didn't know if it was like 19 out of 20 dead or something like,
Actually, let me say something else.
And there was something else. I just can't recall off the top of my head what we were.
Yeah, it's a list of names. So
Well, my main concern was it wasn't like almost all of them, but 2 are dead. Is what I wanted to get out of that.
correct. Actually, on that expedition, there wasn't a large number of accidents or anything like that.
Okay.
And there have been no nibbles on my classified advertisements.
Mm-mm.
And our appointment with Reginald Campbell Thompson is at 1:30, so we've got some time. I'd like to go upstairs and see if Mr. Munden is in his usual position. I'd like to show him the image from the base of the statuette on its clay replica, because no books so far have told us anything, and all we know is that Mr. Schweinsauger thought it was a symbol of evil.
Okay.
Anybody want to come upstairs and meet weird Mr. Munden?
I'll join you there, as they say.
John, you're muted.
I did not want to go.
Oh.
I'll stay here. Stay down here.
All right, so some of you are going upstairs to see Mr. Munden. What do the rest of you want to do?
Basically, I was going to talk with Felix about possibly making a meeting with Guido at some point and how we're going to take care of that.
Okay.
We
Go ahead.
probably should.
Well, let him go upstairs, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go upstairs, and yeah, Mr. Munden's kind of in his usual spot, sipping tea and reading something.
Hello again, Munden. Good to see you.
Ah, Mr. Harper.
Good morning.
How are you? Mr. Gamontov, as I recall.
Indeed.
What can I do for you?
I say, you seem to be a very well-read fellow. First, I'd like to thank you for your connection to the museum. It was of considerable use to us. I appreciate it.
Think nothing of it.
I have here a curious artifact, and I wonder if it means anything to you. I can't find anything in books. I present him the clay relief. Does this symbol mean anything? Or is it a symbol?
Well, first of all, this isn't an ancient piece. This is fairly new. It looks like it was made a few days ago.
Yes, this is a replica of something that's actually originally in gold, strangely enough.
Oh, really? It looks I'd say on first glance, I'd say it looks definitely like a statue of Nabu, although it's rather unusual in its shape and form. And this is the symbol on the bottom. It's not cuneiform.
No. Doesn't even look related. In fact, I can't place it as any written language.
I mean, in other cultures, I might say a maker's mark, but I don't know if maker's mark's being used in ancient Sumeria.
I wondered about the possibility that it was a seal or stamp. But again, usually those are representative either of a figure or some writing.
Yeah. Yes.
The shape itself isn't suggestive of anything?
Not particularly. It's a little large for a stamp, don't you think? And I'm not sure that, a clay stamp, do they use clay stamps?
Well, and again, this is gold in the original, so it might deform over time if that was its purpose.
I have no idea. It's a very interesting piece. Where's the original?
The original is put away for safekeeping because, as you may be aware, statues of Nabu have become rather dangerous to be in possession of.
Have they?
I guess I haven't been fully frank with you. The cause of all of this hullabaloo is that we think that there's a relationship between the recent murder at the British Museum and the death of Lord in his home.
Good Lord.
Yes. Both crimes seemed to involve a theft of a statue of Nabu.
Well, that's very strange indeed.
Yes, usually scribe gods don't run around killing people.
Well, and Nabu was one of the most popular of the Assyrian gods, and there are statues of him. There's a number of huge statues of him in the British Museum. And a lot of numerous smaller depictions of him, bas-reliefs especially. Perhaps they're selling them on the black market or something. There are some collectors, some collectors that will go to great lengths to get a piece of history.
Yes, it's true.
My good fellow, do you know of anything about, how you say, people who are well, I hesitate to use the word, any organizations that are into Assyrian things such as deities and such, like Nabu? I mean, are there any groups functioning today that you know of that, like?
You mean occult groups?
Well, occult or scientific, archaeological sort of thing.
I don't really know. I'm aware that there are quite a number of spiritualist groups and groups based on there's that Aleister Crowley fellow.
I'm very well familiar. That's why I'm asking you, is because these days, for the past few decades, there've been groups for everything, and it's kind of hard to follow along and who's who and what's what, where's where,
I'm afraid I'm just not that up on modern occult groups. I'm sure there's a group for everything.
Yes, that's why I asked that, since my sources do not come up with any groups surrounding Nabu, seeing if other people knew of groups surrounding Nabu out there.
One would imagine that it would all be bookworms.
More than likely, yes.
Then again, I don't think that they would be really that interested in occult nonsense.
Perhaps.
Regarding the antiquity portion of it, do you know of any continuity of Assyrian faith in between the end of the cuneiform era and now? I know, for example, like there were Isis cultists that were in Malta for a bit in the ancient days, but I don't know of any continuity in that regard.
I'd almost like to say that the Assyrian culture, it sprang up, it grew, it shined brightly, and then it faded rather quickly.
Well, it appears to be back in London.
I think that the city of Nineveh went from being the hub of the planet, where everyone lived and everybody worked and traded, to being just an almost wiped out complete city in less than 100 years.
It has me thinking there. Perhaps this form of Nabu was not the typical form of Nabu because it came from different part of Assyrian Empire. Maybe conquered lands or colonies and such, and this is their form of creation.
If I was to look at this, and you say that it was made out of gold, which is rather odd.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'd almost say that it's a statue about spiritual enlightenment. You can see that the priest here is bent over, and the god is either descending down into him or coming out of him. He's going from being a normal human to being a glorified. At least that's the impression. Of course, I'm imposing all of my Western prejudices into the thing.
Higher ascension.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it has been called in Western parlance Nabu ascended, so that does appear to be a repeated interpretation. I'd also like to ask you, I don't know, you don't seem like a fellow who partakes enormously in gossip, but there is some rumor going around of a secret expedition to Nineveh sometime after the 1903, including a fellow named Peter Simkin. Any of that sound familiar at all?
The name Simpkin does sort of ring a bell. The one to ask would be Reginald Campbell Thompson.
Yes. I'm afraid he's not going to be entirely forthcoming, but I do plan to speak about it with him. Foreknowledge is forearmed, after all. Well, if you think of anything, we're about.
I'm not so sure. Ramsey is. Reginald is a fairly serious scientist. He's.
Yes, but when politics get involved, people can sometimes be compromised.
Well, that's true.
It's my concern.
Anything else I can help you with?
Well, nothing comes to mind. Thank you very much, as always, for your counsel.
Your input is appreciated. Thank you.
Certainly. All right, back to the three of you downstairs.
All right, so Fuller and Felix and myself, I assume we're still sitting around the table when the other two gentlemen went upstairs. Once they're out of earshot, I say, so, gentlemen, this Guido, he seems like a pretty nefarious character. I'm not sure if Reginald or Vladimir might agree with what I'm saying, but I think we need to make him talk.
I agree with it. I think the only way we're going to find out what they're doing and what they're looking for is to actually pull them off the street and ask.
I'll be more than happy to help you convince them.
I figured you would. That's why I let the other guys go upstairs, so maybe we could break it to them a little more gently than I'm putting it now. But I think we find out where he is, who's he's stalking, which apartment, or if he's at the antique store, if he's stalking Nevy's apartment. Watch him for a little while.
It seems to me that he's following this couple that were friends of Nevy's. He's following the guy at Sweet Relics because Nevy was there. He's obviously after Nevy. So
Correct.
what we should do is just walk past him, talking to each other, and mention that we're on our way to meet Nevy. This will encourage the guy to follow us into a back alley.
Hopefully he does. Hopefully he doesn't smell a setup. If he's an experienced gangster or whatever, he might not fall for that. Regardless, I think, that could happen. Walk past. I'll walk behind him as he turns around. I'll walk right up behind him, stick my finger in his back, tell him, get in the car and keep your mouth shut.
I like that one, Cyrus. I think that's the way we ought to go.
I mean, I'll I open up my jacket and I have a pistol hanging on I'll stick my finger in his back.
Now we just got to figure out. Actually, we don't have to figure out anything. You guys ready to go?
Let's go.
I mean, we should wait for the other gentleman. I think this could be a group effort. The more the merrier.
They did voice their displeasure with that kind of tactic before.
Right, but I want to give them the option to at least say no, and then we'll just go and do it.
Plus, we also don't want everybody there, so that we have at least a couple of people that he doesn't recognize. That he can't pull it out of a lineup and say, yes, it was these people.
Right, but what I'm thinking is maybe the two of you walk past and do that ploy. One of them is on one side of the street, another's on the other. Reginald could be on one corner, Vladimir could be on another, so we have eyes everywhere, because who knows if he's there by himself. I'm just, safety in numbers and more eyes, And then they can get into a cab and just follow us or go back here or...
Well, where should we take them?
Could drive down to the docks. Work them out over in the car and ask them questions and dump them off down at the docks after we get the information. Or dump him in the water if he doesn't speak. I mean, I'm not going to kill the guy, but we don't want him coming back after us.
Oh, I'm sure if you handle it right, he won't come back and bother us.
Well, from my dealings with people, some people are just thick-headed and they never learn to just walk away.
So the others are coming back down the stairs.
Hey, Fuller, you want to tell them the good news?
So we have decided that we're going to hunt down this Guido and have a few words with him.
Hunt down, you say?
You figured out where he's at and who he is?
No, but we can make assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go to Bingo and Honoria's block and physically assault any individuals you see loitering.
That is correct. Nailed it.
Well, we're kind of hoping you'd come and point them out to us so we just don't beat up, Mr. Whipple, the store owner or something. But
well, I do think since Vadim and I have seen at least one of these individuals, and his behavior was consistent with the assumptions we're making that he is in fact part of some potentially violent organization looking for Nevi or the statuette, that at least one of us should be present to point him out. On the other hand, we have never seen at least one of the gentlemen who are staking them out. And since I mentioned Nevi to this potential Guido yesterday, they might be on the lookout. Also, we do have a meeting in an hour and a half or so with Reginald Campbell Thompson. So presumably you don't want to engage in any reckless acts of violence before that's resolved.
no, I figure we could do it after the meeting.
Yeah.
And by chance, did anyone get a telephone number for the apartment so we could call them and see if he's standing outside?
Keeper, do we have that or just the address?
For who?
For Nevi's, for Honoria and Bingo's place.
They would have given you their phone.
Yeah, we could even ask them to call here when they see one of their regulars. At any rate, having had no sleep, endless nightmares, and thinking about the brutal murder of two gentlemen, I'm feeling a little less ambivalent about aggressively approaching these wanton gentlemen.
Well, I'll get my hands dirty. You don't need to worry yourself about that.
I'm also reconsidering a visit to Peter Simpkin because scaring him to death is preferable to having his hands and feet cut off.
That's true. So maybe we could place the phone call to the apartment, let them know to inform us when the gentleman Guido or whomever is stalking them. We'll go to the meeting to meet Reginald Campbell Thompson, swing by our poor frightened fellow and see what we can accomplish there. And then hopefully by then we'll have some information on Guido. I mean, if that's okay with everybody else.
In broad strokes, I think it's all reasonable.
I agree. Though I do think the Guido we are looking for is not the guy who is on the street corner. I think he's something else, something bigger.
I was kind of thinking that also, but maybe we can get some information at least.
All right.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry, what are you doing first? You
The
are...
meeting.
The meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you head back over to the British Museum. We'll say it's about 1:15. The meeting's at 1:30. You go inside, and there's a reception desk, and you tell them that you have a meeting with our friend.
RCT.
RCT, very good. Where's RCT? There you are. They point you down a hallway that will take you to Mr. Thompson's office. And it's down a hallway. It's outside of the main museum area. So you've gone into the back. You can see there are a number of other offices. There are restrooms. There's a sort of a break area. There's a couple of workrooms where people are working on things, restoration of paintings and stuff like that. And there's a large wooden door at the end of the hall that has Campbell Thompson in gold letters on it.
What's his title at the museum?
He's just an archaeologist, but he's a prominent one, obviously. So I assume you knock on the door, and you hear a voice. Come in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. I'm Reginald Harcourt. I believe you're expecting us?
Yes, please come in. My goodness, there's quite a few of you.
Yes, quite. Luckily, I have a capacious office space. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves if you would.
Cyrus Finley, pleasure to meet you. I extend my hand.
And he shakes your hand.
Felix Matthews.
And he shakes your hand.
Fuller Albright.
He shakes your hand.
Prince Vadim Kamatov. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Prince, Russian Prince. Shakes your hand. Please, gentlemen. What can I do for you?
Mr. Thompson, while I'm honored to meet archaeologist of your stature, I'm afraid the circumstances are a bit unfortunate. You are aware, of course, of Lord Brightman's death.
Yes. He's a good friend. A brilliant archaeologist. I was quite saddened to hear that he had passed.
Did you hear anything about the circumstances of his death?
I heard that he was murdered, that somebody broke into his home looking for God knows what.
Well, the particular god who knows is the god Nabu, you see.
Oh? Why would you say that?
Well, to the best of our information, with some corroboration, the only thing that was stolen from his stately home was the statuette of that god.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs when we live in a world where people will murder one another for an old bit of rock that has its historic value, but there are, I suppose, some collectors out there who will. I can't believe people would murder one another for something like this. You can come and see it in the museum anytime that you want. Why? Sad.
Yes, you see, Mr. Thompson, it is quite sad, but it's also a bit alarming. And in fact, you in particular might be somewhat concerned because this murder and theft was not merely acquisitive, it was rather passionate. Would one of you care to describe the conditions under which Lord Brightman was found?
Well, he was stabbed multiple times. His hands and feet were cut off. A very specific note was stuffed into his mouth. And he was stabbed, 26 times or something?
37 times in the torso. And his throat was cut from ear to ear.
My God.
So it seems rather like a ritual murder to us. you see.
And the note said, "Cursed be the plunderer. He cannot avoid discovery. His reward is death."
You can all do a psychology roll.
We only know ancient minds.
I failed it.
Failed it.
Any passes? Nope. Okay.
I don't even have the skill. So
Yeah, I think we're all at 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I could spend 9 luck points if it's worth it. I rolled a 19.
nah.
Mr. Thompson. Oh, you said no one would kill each other over a chunk of rock. This wasn't rock. This was solid gold.
And not that one. The one that was taken from Thompson's was stone.
I mean Brightman's.
Brightman's, yes. Just point of order.
So you know where it was from. The Brightmans.
I'm sorry, I'm confused about the question that's being said.
I think Felix was confused about which statuette was which.
Yep.
Or were you trying to trick me?
No. I think I tricked myself.
Okay.
Too many statues.
Yep.
Because you could have been being really clever.
Yeah, I'm Psst, Felix, I'm holding onto the gold one.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Well, it's a terrible. You said this had to do with something, though.
Yes, well, you also, of course, heard about the murder that took place here in the museum.
Ah, yes, Mr. Glossop.
Mr. Glossop. Do you know what was
terrible
stolen when
tragedy.
Mr. Glossop was killed?
I'm sorry that there was something stolen.
A stone bust of Nabu.
Again with Nabu. That's
Yes.
very strange.
So as an Assyriologist, I think that you might be somewhat concerned that there is something peculiar going on.
I'm not always told these things. I'm certainly not in charge of the museum.
Of course not.
It seems that I know that the museum would take very dimly on the idea of something being stolen. Things get misplaced all the time, I've been told, and show up later.
Yeah, but the curator was killed and the item was stolen. It wasn't a misplace.
Once again, some madman who thinks that he wants a piece of what amounts to a piece of art and willing to kill for it. That's insane.
Yes, in fact, there does seem to be a degree of insanity involved, which further suggests that you might have reason to be concerned yourself. After all, if Lord Brightman was considered a plunderer, so might you be, wouldn't you think? By a
It
madman.
sounds a rescuer, I would consider myself, but I don't know. It sounds to me like someone is trying to throw you off track, perhaps, with nonsensical stuff. Though
Well, we're not Scotland Yard. We're just
it's very disturbing. I'm sorry. You don't seem to be private investigators. Or...
No, not private nor public. We're members of the Wentworth Club. We're merely concerned about a series of crimes.
Now I see the connection. If you're with the Wentworth Club,
Yes.
all right.
And you called Lord Brightman a good friend. Did you dig with him often?
Yes, I've been on digs with him. Yes, certainly.
And Peter Semkin, have you spoken to him lately?
Peter. Yes, I'm afraid Peter's probably a bit shell-shocked, if you will. The last time I heard that he wasn't doing very well. How is he?
He's not very well. Do you know what triggered his shell shock?
I can't really say. He wasn't. He seemed perfectly normal. The last dig we were on together.
And which dig was that? Pray tell.
1903.
So he wasn't with you on the 1919.
I beg your pardon.
The 1919 dig.
The
Or
one from which the gold statuette of Naboo was recovered.
From the Temple of Naboo when it was discovered.
Who are you?
Curious citizens who were trying to prevent a series of murders from continuing, Mr. Thompson.
I'm sorry.
Concerned
I think that you must be mistaken about. There was no dig in 1919. I traveled to Iraq because my friend. Oh, who am I trying to fool? How do you know about the 1919 dig?
it's quite public knowledge.
It's public knowledge. Jesus Christ.
Well, all the public we've spoken to.
We've been digging about.
It's supposed to be a secret.
I understand there are political reasons. We're concerned about who might still be alive that was on that dig, because I fear that other lives are in danger. Yours included, Mr. Thompson.
Well, there's not very many of us that are still alive. Brightman just recently died. Simkin is still alive, though I'm not sure what condition he's really in. There's Terrence McElvoy. There's Willard Punchin. And I don't think there's anybody else around.
Was Mr. Glossop involved in the 1919 dig?
No, Mr. Glossop is a assistant curator here. Was.
But was he going through the undocumented items that came from the dig? That's the connection we're trying to make. It seems like everyone who touches the stuff from the 1919 dig is winding up dead. Which is why we're here to speak to you.
I'm sure what you're speaking about just happens to be some strange coincidence. People die all of the time. People claimed that the people who found the Tutankhamun tomb were all cursed. And the thing is, they were all men who had heart attacks and were old, and they just died. Andrew King just died. He died of a heart attack.
Then Mr. McElvoy and Mr. Punchin are still alive. Of those who have passed away from the expedition not to be named, did all of those die of heart attacks and common colds? Or were there other violent acts?
Well, I'm sorry. I must insist that anything that I speak to you about here has to stay in this room.
Agreed.
The British Museum funded us. Let's start at the beginning. 1903, we had a 2-year expedition to Iraq. We were attempting to excavate the mound of Nebu Yunus, which is what we were there for. But as we were working, we began to uncover bits of evidence that seemed to indicate that we might be able to find the legendary Temple of Nabu. And it took us a while, but eventually we located the area that it should be in, and we began a small exploratory dig. And at the time, we reached pretty much the end of our funding, and we had to return to London. But we did find it. We found it, and we hid it. We sealed it up. We kept it a secret. And King and I had intended to go back as soon as we could get funding. There was some problems with the Iraqi government. It's not an easy thing. Museums have a lot of beautiful things, but they don't always have money. And it wasn't until 1918, that the museum told us that they would be able to fund a return trip and that we would be able to go back. And Then King died. He died of a heart attack. He was actually very excited about the whole thing. And then he died of a heart attack. But I pushed forward. I said, I'll go instead. And I gave the pretext that I was just mourning my lost friend. But we took a team back. Simkin was on it, and Mr. McAvoy. And we went, and we uncovered the temple. And we also uncovered the royal library, and we brought the artifacts back. And the museum is currently under construction to build a display.
And that's not too sensitive right now with the government in Iraq? Or is the pretense going to be that all of these things were acquired in 1903?
No, they simply don't know.
Once the exhibit is public, though.
It's too late. It's possession is 9/10 of the law, as they say.
And again, someone seems to know. We don't think that these murders are coincidental. They happened 4 days apart.
There were accidents when we went back. We were there secretly. The locals were not really informed. A few of the immediate locals, those nearby, figured out what we were doing. But they weren't connected to the government, so they really didn't know. But we had a couple of accidents. One of our team members, Thomas Banksmith, was crushed under a large piece of the temple that collapsed on top of him. And later, there were a couple of workers that were murdered. I believe they were murdered. Their bodies were mangled. But we pressed on. Accidents happen. And we don't give in to superstition very easily.
No, curses are a lot of barbaric nonsense. And digging is a dangerous enterprise. Do you think that the statuette that we know was stolen from Lord Brightman when he was murdered?
Now, you say things have been stolen. Yes, the statuette you're talking about, the strange one, the stone one. Yes, that was from the temple.
The gold one?
You said gold one.
Yes.
I think there was a gold one as well. That's also been stolen then.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I'm at a loss. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, I have to do a much stronger assessment of things.
Do you think that Terence McAvoy or William Punchin might have souvenirs from the 1919 dig as well?
Yes, it's very likely.
Do you want to tell them that they might be in danger, or should we do so? It might be interesting for us to talk to them anyway.
I haven't spoken to them in quite some time.
And do you know really why Peter Simkin is so terrified?
People go crazy.
Nothing in particular happened to him.
Lord Brightman himself was acting rather strange this last year. He used to be a frequent visitor, and I haven't seen him in a long time. I hadn't seen him in a long time. I'm told that he had some form of dementia.
He was growing reclusive, I understand.
Felix, do a spot hidden.
12 on
Nice.
65, so that's a extreme.
As you're standing in his office, now you can imagine that his office is lined with books and papers and artifacts. He's got artifacts all over the place and things like that. And you're getting a little tired of standing there, so you sort of lean on a counter, and you realize that you've put your hand on what looks like a journal.
How big is this journal?
It's not very big, little thing like that. Looks like a fancy, something from the 1920s. Well, from your little modern for you guys. But Campbell Thompson is speaking to Reginald, so he's not looking in your direction.
I'll take that. I'll actually. I'll just I can just open it up and start reading in it, right?
Well, that might be noticed, but when you open it up, you do see it's Reginald's journal.
In that case, I'm going to try to take that without him knowing that I've got it.
Okay. I don't think you need to roll for it. It's easy enough to...
I made 59 on 60 anyway, on sleight of hand.
Okay.
Mr. Thompson, could I ask you a question?
Of course, please.
Yes.
You already know all of the answers.
Do you know who brought forth the funding for the 1919 dig and who had interest in it on the financial level?
The entire British Museum, the board of directors.
Came from the board of directors?
Yes, why wouldn't they?
Anyone in particular on the board of directors?
No, it would be something that would be voted on by the entire board.
So no one in particular had a specific interest in making sure you had the funds to make this happen?
All of them would have had interest in us going there and getting all of these artifacts out of...
So basically they knew that you had found the Temple of Nabu, and this was a priority for them to ensure that the expedition happens.
No and yes. We had made it clear to them that we had reason to believe that we would be able to find it. That's in part why it took so long, but we were very careful not to reveal that we actually had found it already. We didn't want any chance of anybody going there and getting to it before we did.
That was wise.
Now, do you know a Mr. Guido?
Guido sounds Italian. No, I don't know anybody with the last name Guido.
Or first name?
Or is it a first name? No.
All right.
Nothing to me.
Is there any, again, if you don't mind me asking, going to with this new display that's coming up, is there any particular patron to this assisting in the British Museum in having this display be put together and put out there for the public?
You're asking, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, obviously the British Museum has numerous patrons, but the British Museum is rather restricted. They're not restricted by the patrons on what they do with their money. They're sparing no expense at this, but it's not knowledge outside because of exactly. I don't know how you all managed to track down so much information. This is supposed to be a secret.
It's taken many days.
You can't say anything until the British Museum makes the announcement.
When is the exhibit to open?
Not until next year.
And you said that in addition to Nabu's temple, you found the associated library. This was a large number of cuneiform texts?
Exactly.
Who's in charge of translating them?
Oh, I don't think that they're translating them. They are being examined. Mr. Glossop was working on part of that collection, though he was told it was the continuance of the 1903. As I say, the museum is being incredibly careful with who it's letting know.
Now, you said some of the workers were, you believe, might have been killed. Their bodies were mangled. Do you know of any group or organization that would want to put a stop? I know they don't want the British in Iraq. I understand that. But specifically, any underground groups or nefarious beings that really want to put a stop to it? Not just the political dissidents and stuff.
When we were there, some of the locals were very threatening. You know, they're superstitious. They believe in magic and curses and things like that.
You say the bodies were mangled. How were they mangled?
They'd appeared to be cut up.
Feet and hands?
As if they'd been lacerated all over. It's a very unpleasant memory.
Yes, I'm sure it was very unpleasant for Lord Brightman as well.
Another question, if I may. Were there any unusual trappings of a religious or perhaps even, I dare say, a cult nature to the Temple of Nabu that stood out? Something odd and unusual?
It was a temple to an Assyrian god. Everything was a cult from our particular point of view.
But nothing that really focused in on the religious occult nature beyond it being the temple of a god.
Well, the artifacts inside were all part of the temple artifacts.
Along with Vladim's question, now Nabu is normally depicted as the scribe god, but we seem to see this Nabu ascending now that is in a different depiction of him. Is that unique?
There are numerous depictions of Nabu.
But
perhaps the most common is with him simply standing with his hands together, or holding the tablets of life, as they're sometimes called.
What other notable depictions of Nabu, other than the three that we have discussed,
There's numerous depictions out in the museum itself. Gentlemen, I am afraid I am running out of time. However,
just one last quick, if you don't mind, and it's about Simpkin because he's really in a bad way. Do you remember anything specific that he may have taken home as a souvenir, or if he did anything?
I can't think of anything specifically.
Okay.
To be honest, we are the archaeologists. We all took home things.
Yeah. Oh, it's understandable. To hear him behind that wall and afraid to even open a door, the state that he's in.
You should perhaps have them come and take him to an asylum or something.
That would probably kill him where he stood. Poor guy. But I don't mean to hold you up.
Do be cautious, Mr. Thompson. I think that we seem perhaps a bit obsessive, but there is cause to be alarmed. Thank you for your time. And as we go, it was odd, I thought, that there was any golden statuary in an Assyrian context. Was that the only golden artifact in the temple?
That I recall.
Well, I'll look to see if there's anything else when the exhibit opens next year.
Gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will look into some of this immediately.
Thank you very much, sir.
Contact us at the Wentworth Club if you remember anything or anything happens that you wish to tell us about.
Or if you have any questions of us.
Yes, of course.
Please be careful.
All right. So you leave his office and you make your way back out into the museum proper.
Felix, when he mentioned about having Simpkin committed, actually, it might not be bad. What kind of life can he have sitting behind the door crying? If he's at least in an institution, one, he'd be protected behind padded doors. People couldn't get to him to kill him. And two, we can gain access to his house to look for the artifact.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't really thinking about all that. I was just trying to trick him into...
Oh, I know.
If he was holding anything back, to be honest with you, the guy's going to cry in his house. There's people that do that all the time that really have nothing wrong with them at all. It's just what they do for their spare time.
Yeah.
But
don't exactly share your sentiments at that, Cyrus.
But he knows more than what he's letting on, I think.
He does, and we need to carefully try and find out as much as we can from him.
You know, upstairs when Vadim and I spoke to Mr. Munden, he told us that he thought Reginald would be very forthcoming. And we found that he is a liar as far as he can get away with. Something to be mindful of. Gentlemen, I could sorely use a stiff drink, but I would like to go into the Syrian Sumerian wing before we leave and look at all the Naboos we can find and see if there are any other significant forms that might suggest the one that we know.
Agreed. Or perhaps a progression of form.
Quite.
Okay, well, I'll just tell you that in the Syrian wing, you do find a number of different depictions of him. There's, of course, the common. There's a very large statue. It's kind of a centerpiece to the Assyrian wing of Nabu. I think it stands like 15 feet tall, and it's Nabu standing, I think, with his hands kind of like this. And there are bas-reliefs with Nabu with his four wings in a chariot, and being dragged by strange-looking, what look to us like monsters. And there's
he has a dragon that he rides, doesn't he?
Yes, there's kind of a dragon that he rides, and there's things where he's fighting, and there's things where he's writing in his book, the Tablets of Life. Supposedly he writes, everything that he writes in the book is what happens in the real world.
Those sound very powerful.
All right, so
I have a quick question for any staff that's. I guess it would have to be like almost an inventory staff. I'm not super fluent in museum titles, but the people who document the artifacts as they come in and assign them the control numbers.
Well, the curator, like the assistant curators like Glossop, he was busy at that time documenting all of the and all of their contents, what they had.
Right. The reason I ask is because we have the catalog number of the gold statue that we know was found in the 1919 dig. So chances are consecutive catalog numbers are going to be items that were also pulled from that same 1919 dig. See, we have the 25B 254-12 on the gold statue, which perhaps 25B 254-13 may be the item that was picked up next or pulled out of the box that all of it came back with. I'm just wondering if there were more items that came from that, and maybe that would steer us or give us some kind of idea.
Okay. Probably your best contact you've already made here is Mr. Longton. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a specific question for Longton about that, we could leave him a note, even if he's not available right now.
Yeah, that'd be good. Leave him a note, and then we can just swing back by at our convenience to see if he replied.
Yeah, or ask him to contact the club.
Yep.
He was friendly enough.
Yep.
Okay. Anything that you give to the reception will get to the proper curator, scientist, whatever. So you're asking for consecutive, things.
Yep. Basically, maybe 5 before, 5 after, just to get us in the neighborhood of what other types of items were pulled from there.
Okay.
And whether or not, that may be what's sitting in Captain Crazy's house or wherever, over Simpkins.
Okay. All right. So you give that message, and now you're leaving the British Museum. What are you going to do?
I think it might be time to go see the Pinkers.
Wait, Guido?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yep.
so can we place a call back to the club to see if the roommates had called that they spotted Guido or somebody watching, out in the corner again?
The club isn't far from the museum, is it?
Not too far. No.
I mean, I'd like a stiff drink after that meeting, and we can call from there if we haven't got a message back.
I do agree. A stiff drink is much needed.
Okay. So for now, you head back to the Wentworth Club and you go in, and Mr. Sykes brings you whatever you need, whatever you'd like, a whiskey or a... Gentlemen, you a whiskey.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we have no messages?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna call the Pinkers. If anybody's home, is anybody outside?
You call their house, but you don't get an answer.
They both are working people. Gentlemen, then, because they're not home does not mean that their home is not being watched.
Correct.
Were we thinking 2 cars?
Yes, definitely.
Since Vadim and I might be recognized, we should. I'm not familiar with espionage. How would you go about such a thing?
Well, first, go, Felix.
I before we go, and now that the alcohol's kind of running through the body, I look around to see if anybody else is around this table other than just this group.
Just this group.
I got his journal.
You what?
What?
Yeah, I stole the hell out of his journal, right off his table.
Boże moi.
So that's how you
Nice.
espionage, in case you were wondering. You got to start with information, and here is Reginald Campbell Thompson's journal from 1920.
Well done.
From the Journal of Reginald Campbell Thompson, 1903. Each day we grew closer to making a discovery. At last, our efforts yielded some fruit, but it was too close to the end of our allotted time, and our funds were running low. We made a pact, King and I, to hide any evidence of our discovery until such a time that we could return and fully uncover it. The Temple of Naboo would be the most significant find of the 20th century. 1918. All of the arrangements are in place for our return to Nineveh next year. We are being fully backed by the British Museum. King is almost as excited as I am. We will have to be very close-mouthed about it, considering the growing situation with the Iraqi government. August 1919. My good friend and colleague Leonard King is dead. His heart gave out. I am deeply saddened, but this should not delay our efforts. He would want me to forge ahead. September 1919. It is exactly as we have left it, untouched and unexplored. Not just the Temple of Naboo, but the Royal Library as well. What a treasure trove of history is laid before us. All of it must be shipped back, everything, but all in secret. We cannot allow these artifacts to be lost to history. Early October 1919. The work has been delayed. Some of the workers are afraid of something. They claim to be attacked by strange animals and occasionally by some of the locals. There have been thefts despite there being posted 4 guards at all times. Now we are having accidents. Thomas Banksmith was killed by a partial cave-in, and 2 of the workers went missing, their bodies later showing up horribly mutilated. I'm told that the desert can do a lot of damage to a body, but this looked more to me like foul play. Late October 1919. While leaving my tent to relieve myself, it was about 10:30 in the evening when I was accosted by a sinister-looking Iraqi dressed all in black except for a red turban. I asked him who he was, and he said, one of many who seek to keep the past asleep and undisturbed. He warned me that by opening the Temple of Naboo, I risked unleashing a great evil, and that a curse would fall upon me and on everyone associated with the expedition. He said that there were things that should never be touched, that possessing such a thing would bring a terrible curse upon the person. The dead will have their revenge, he said, then disappeared into the night. Superstitious nonsense, I say. Most recent entry. With the death of Lord Brightman a few days ago, there are only a few of us left from the 1919 expedition. Terence McAvoy, 34 Hebron Road, W6. Peter Simpkin, 85, Lavender Grove, E8. Willard Punchin, West Sussex.
Well, that'll help us find Punchin and McAvoy. And it, again, galls me how much Thompson was pretending not to be concerned about any of this.
I think we just confirmed to him that foul play is being involved with this situation.
We also confirmed that anybody touching these items is starting to have some bad things happen to them.
I wonder why he thinks he's safe.
Maybe he doesn't think
Confirmed
he's
it
safe.
For him, by stating the obvious. That's why he excused himself so abruptly.
Cyrus, you're really quiet.
I think he just came to the I think he just came to the realization when we brought up the facts to him. I think he might just be coming to terms with the actuality of the situation now, and that's why he ended the meeting abruptly.
This also confirms that there is a group out there that knows about Temple of Naboo that seeks to protect.
Yes, the red turban. That's what we'll call them for now.
Yeah.
That's something to look into.
Hindsight's 20/20. I wish we would have waited outside and see where he went at right after he left the museum. But too late. Excellent work, Felix.
Are you going to mail it back to him?
No. When I go by to check for a response on that catalog, I may try to slip it back in there, or, more than likely, I'm just going to throw it in the trash. I mean, I'm just going to be honest here. You'll get caught putting something back more times than you'll get caught stealing it.
Well, that's why I thought the post might be in order. He'd not appended return address. I think he'll know.
Yeah, I mean, we're the only ones that came in his office, I'm sure, for quite a while.
Certainly the only ones chasing him down about the 1919 expedition.
Could I offer alternative? Mayhaps we put the journal with the statue for safekeeping. There might be more with that journal that we haven't seen yet. We've just given it a cursory, what's the word? Cursory view on it, and there might be more.
Yeah,
Or there might be something there that's specific to Thompson that we cannot see that might prove useful.
There's a certain poetic touch to it as well that I like. The information and the object will be together.
Yes.
My question, whether we want to postpone the Great Guido snatch since the Pinkers aren't at home, I wonder if we should look into visiting McAvoy and Punchin and ascertaining their health and well-being.
We can look
more urgent.
Yes, we can look for the more nefarious elements later.
All right. But instead of actually going to the bank where Reginald put the statue, I think none of us should be seen going to that bank. Why don't we just leave it in one of the safes here? It will be fine here, and it's only a journal. Nobody will touch it.
No problem.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think any of us should go to that bank if somebody's following us. Like, it's there, it's safe, we know where it is, and that's it. Leave it there until we absolutely, utterly need it.
Yes, if the Red Turban can infiltrate the Bank of England, then we have greater problems than we know.
Exactly.
Based on their addresses, I assume that Terence McAvoy is closer than Willard Pinchin. we want to go farther out of town and then catch McAvoy on the way back? You should add them to your clipping service, Cyrus, just in case either one of them has any notable history.
All right.
Also, to be clear, you have Terrence McAvoy's address. You don't have Willard Pension's address.
Right, just an area.
Yeah.
So before we leave the club, I'll call the clipping service and add those 2 names to the list.
Okay.
Could I flip through the white pages real quick and see if I can snag the other one's address? The one we don't have, the one in West Sussex.
Punch in.
Yeah, you don't have it. It's not there.
Unlisted.
And West Sussex, we know, would be a conurbation of some tens of thousands of people.
Yeah. But he's another one of these people that you can eventually find, you know.
Perhaps we should go by the Pinker's house and check and make sure they are okay.
Fuller, do you just want to punch somebody?
No, I want to make sure they're okay.
We could do that on the way back from inquiring into the other gentleman. And
Yes,
they would be home at that time too, because it is still working hours.
Yes, again, we know both the Pinkers have jobs during the day, so it's not surprising they haven't answered. So do we agree, Terrence McAvoy?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
We could also go 2 ways. I mean, somebody could check out the Pinkers, and some of us could. After all, Mr. Thompson did express surprise that 5 of us barged into his office.
We could cover more ground that way.
If we do, well, my theory on if we do run into this Guido or whoever it is, I would prefer the group of us there just in case. You never know if somebody is down the block making sure he's okay. And then when we go to do what we need to do, we have 2 or 3 more thugs running up behind us and we don't know. Another set of eyes across the street on the top of a set of stairs that can look out and see everything can scream and yell to me to turn around before somebody approached me from behind. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I've never really...
It's an American perspective, I believe. The Yankee ingenuity.
I think he's got a good idea. Being aware of situation is always beneficial.
But you're all going to go to Terrence McAvoy's first?
Yeah, we don't all have to go in, but we'll all stick together at least.
All right. So you drive across town to Hebron Road in West London, and you approach Terrence McAvoy's. It's a small semi-attached house. It's on Hebron Road. It looks like a regular everyday, it's a house amongst houses. Doesn't seem to be much activity. There's, people walking their dogs and stuff over there, whatever, but nothing particular right where you were. You get out, and as you look up at the house, as you approach, you can see that all of the curtains are drawn on the bottom floor.
Been down this road before, I think.
So what do you think? Just 2 of us? So as not to seem like a mob?
Yeah.
Cyrus, you want to go around back?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm thinking about going around back anyway.
Okay.
Everything.
Americans in your gangster films.
So who's going up to the front of the house?
I'll go up to the door.
Okay.
Give it a rap.
There is no answer.
Is there a mail slot?
There is.
I'm gonna give it a little peek.
You don't see much. It's just a room, an entry hall.
Well,
I'm peering around to see if the neighbors are watching.
You don't see any neighbors.
Case the joint.
Do I see any of the curtains move as if somebody were?
No.
Nah. I really don't think anybody's home here.
Do a spot hidden, Felix.
43 on 65.
Okay. You don't see anything, but you get a whiff of something. Like rotten meat.
Ew.
What's the matter, Felix?
There's a stink. There's a stink coming out of his mail slot here. It's not a good stink. It's maybe we may be too late here. I don't want to go in, but I think we should call the police to have them go in.
Maybe we can get a hold of Brinslow specifically in case it's a similar looking situation. I don't want to be found over a dead stranger. Is there a
Agreed.
telephone box nearby?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there would be. It'll be down at the end of the block.
I'm going to call Scotland Yard and see if I can get Brinslow.
I'm going to walk around back and tell Cyrus, don't touch anything. You might as well come on and get in the car.
All right. Brinslow.
Detective Brinslow, this is Reginald Harcourt.
Mr. Harcourt.
I might have some useful news for you, but I think it's unfortunate. Someone associated with Lord Brightman has a home on West River, and we've come to pay him a visit, and I'm afraid he might be another victim.
What's the address again? Sorry.
I do enjoy writing those down.
Hebron Road. Okay.
Hebron Road. On the west side.
All right. And you say there's somebody dead? Are you sure?
No one. We have not been admitted, but there's a scent that suggests foul play, and we know that he was associated specifically with Lord Brightman.
All right. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll be there.
Thank you kindly. I hope I'm not wasting your time. I'm afraid I'm not.
So, what do you guys want to do for 10 minutes while you're, or just wait?
I am actually thinking we leave Reginald here and we get out of here so we're not attached to this dead body in this house. But that might be my different thinking. I just I don't want us to get blamed for killing this guy.
I don't think, there's no entrance to the house, and we've already spoken with him that we were going to not help him investigate, but we were already investigating, and if we found anything out, we'd call him. So
my thought also, Felix, is that if you can smell rotting meat through the mail slot, it's not going to look like a recent crime of passion.
You guys. I'm more of a history guy myself. You guys are the scientists.
We do have two vehicles. If you want to spend your time productively waiting at the Pinkers.
That's true. I don't want to take your car there, though.
Would we not want to have a look at our other gentleman who's potentially on the list?
We don't have an address
for him. We only know generally where he lives, not specifically. Perhaps Brinslow will even be able to use some police directory to find him more specifically. And I would like to see what's happened inside the presumably deceased Mr. McAvoy's place. So I want to stick around.
That's actually a good idea, Reginald. If we bring it up to him and say he might be also in trouble, maybe he could more than likely come up with an address.
Or even send someone out, safe and welfare check.
Yep.
Someone ahead of us.
All right. So 10 minutes go by and a car pulls up, and Brinslow and another officer, one who is dressed more like a policeman, a cop, they get out of the car and they see you and they come walking up, and he says, Mr. Harcourt. He says, you say there's no answer. Let me try. He knocks on the door. What makes you think that there's something wrong?
Smell the slot.
He looks at the other guy. Smell the slot? I don't smell the slot. I'm the one in charge. And the guy does. He smells the slot and he says, "It does smell like there might be something wrong." And he says, "Well, open the door." So the guy shoulders the door open, and indeed the door opens. And the smell is stronger, but you can definitely smell it's there. And he steps inside, and he says to you, he says, "Please don't touch anything." As he steps inside, what do you guys do?
I'll follow inside.
Okay.
If he lets us, yeah, I'll follow right.
He
Not
said
right
don't
behind
touch
him.
anything. He said don't touch anything. He didn't say stay here.
Is there any way to glance around from without barging all in and seeing any kind of statue or relic that is inside, maybe on display in his foyer or in a china hutch or some other furniture?
Well, what you do notice is the place looks like it's had a going over. Like there's definitely some things that have fallen off the mantle and they're broken on the ground. It looks like, there's any place that you might be able to hide something has been opened up. It's definitely been ransacked. And about that time, you hear the lieutenant say, "Yes, there's something in here." And the detective goes, "It's the not the library. What do I want to say? The den, the parlor, whatever it is." And they step in there. So you guys are alone in this room for a few minutes, and you do see that there are a number of Assyrian-related artifacts here and there, but they may have been picked up and set back down again, but they weren't taken. And there are other valuables in the room that were simply not taken. They were looking for something.
That's been the MO since the beginning. They're looking for specific things and leaving other valuable items behind. So not really per se a robbery. They were looking for something very specific.
The assistant, the cop, he suddenly comes halfway out the doorway from the whatever it is, the parlor, and he's green. I mean, he's just like, he looks like he's gonna retch.
Not inside. Go outside.
I look at him and say, "Hands, feet."
He moves to the doorway, and Brinsby comes to the door, and he looks out at you, and he says, "Well, you seem to be involved in this investigation. It's rather gruesome. Do you want to have a look?"
Yeah.
I think it's necessary.
All right. As you approach the door, you can hear the sound of buzzing. And when you look through the room, there is a cloud of flies. And Terrence McAvoy lies on the ground on his back, maggots crawling all over him, flies everywhere, his clothing ripped and torn, and a very obvious major wound going from one ear all the way to the other ear. It's all putrefying. And
Is his feet and hands cut off?
they aren't. But could you do a Constitution roll, everyone?
Constitution roll. I was expecting you to say sanity roll.
06.
Oh, 9. Oh, 9.
That brandy
Vadim
I had
quickly
really helped.
goes out of the room.
I'm eating lasagna while I'm looking at this.
I
Very quickly.
Standard pass.
Okay, so if you
Uh,
didn't pass, then yeah, you got to run out of the room immediately. It's horrible.
Tom, I'm going to go ahead and make a sanity roll after that too, because it was.
You can do sanity rolls. It's incredibly gruesome.
Who
I
are
made
we
it.
with? Is he Captain?
It's Detective Brinslow. I'm not sure
Yes.
what his.
Detective.
Yeah.
Might you take a look in his mouth and see if there's anything placed inside?
He looks at you like, "Fuck you."
Hey, I got the old 06. I can pry it open.
All right. So you start looking the guy over. He doesn't have anything in his mouth.
Okay, so that kind of blows that idea.
What, given that we had such successful constitution rolls, but we have no forensics, what do we think? 2 days, a week? We have no idea.
A month.
A month.
Yeah.
There's none
So,
left
so
his
he's
ass.
really.
Yeah. He's covered in.
I take it there's no way we can tell if he'd been roughed up prior to having his throat cut.
God, not after a month.
Yeah, I didn't figure that much, but hey.
Are
Right.
there other stab wounds or just a throat slit?
You don't. It's hard to tell because there's a lot of putrefaction.
He's
but
fucking liquid at this
Well,
point in time.
the
so-
clothes might have
Retort.
holes.
it looks like he probably did struggle.
Okay.
Well, that blows my idea because he's obviously not a victim of the one that got Lord Brightman because they weren't killed in the same way. This
Well,
guy
But
might
Brightman
just,
had his throat slit. It
yes,
might just
but
be
he
a
had his-
hierarchy. You know, the one who's in charge gets the feet in the hand treatment, and the servant only is terribly murdered. And you know, the workers back in Iraq were, you know, mangled, but it wasn't necessarily very ritual. I'm
Well,
not saying you.
I can't argue the point with you. I mean, obviously, I mean, at this point in time, it is just a guessing game. I'm just saying is that the MO of this crime is completely different than Lord Brightman.
Cyrus, do a spot hidden for me.
$46 out. I could spend 1 point of luck.
Okay.
So I just got a standard success.
On his mantle, there is kind of a little small album of photographs. And as you look at them, you notice that it shows McAvoy in foreign climes at various archaeological digs. And one of them shows him standing with Thompson at the entrance of what looks to be a deep passageway down into the ground.
Anything else there, or
That's what you find.
is the picture matted down or is it loose? Maybe I could turn it over, see if there's like a date or a something.
You turn it over and it says Nineveh 1919.
All right. Can I just put that in my jacket pocket?
Do a stealth roll to see if you can do that without being noticed.
Detective Brinslow.
Yes, sir.
I wave it around in the air and I drop it 3 times. I miserably failed that.
Detective Brinslow, we have one other name. The only other member of the same archaeological dig that Lord Brightman and this gentleman attended. We don't have an address for him, but perhaps you'll want to send someone to West Sussex to look for a Willard Punchin.
Willard Punchin. He writes that down in his thing. All right, we'll look into that. So you're
sorry that our help has been so late
sorry.
in coming.
Your theory is that these are all related in some way. That's very interesting.
You notice the ancient Assyrian artifacts in all of the homes and the similarity of the murders.
Now, he starts to look around and he says, if this is murder, and it definitely looks like murder, how did they get in and out? Everything was locked.
It's a very interesting point, sir. I don't know how the locks on this home work, or some of you can lock behind with a key.
Well, he starts to investigate that. What are the rest of you doing?
I'll wait till he leaves and I'll show the guys the picture.
Okay.
Sitting on the stoop, trying to recover myself.
Okay. With the cop.
With the cop.
And I assume there are more cops in the way. Having pocketed the photograph, I'll follow Brinslow into the next room and ask him if we need to make statements or if we can go about our business.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea that I have you make statements.
I mean, we didn't go inside. All we can say is...
And he sort of gestures back to the body and he says, I don't suspect you of murder. Felix, you were saying something, but you were muted.
I was just out on the stoop with those guys. I had failed that Constitution roll by 1. So I was able to catch it. I threw up in my mouth and then swallowed it and then left before it came back out.
Okay.
And I made that roll, but is there a penalty nonetheless?
No, because you're kind of were expecting it. You know, I mean it doesn't lessen the horror of it, but you're braced for it, so you don't really take any sanity damage. All right. The three of you that are still inside the house do a spot hidden.
Ooh, 16.
12.
I made it 51 for 60.
Okay. Let's see. So, Fuller, as you're walking around, you notice an envelope that's next to a chair that looks like it might have been his smoking chair or something like that. It's an opened envelope. And when you look down, you can see the return address is Peter Simkin.
Put that in my jacket pocket quietly.
Okay. Is that the best spot hidden, or do we all get a treat?
I just gave it to the best spot hidden. Other than that, you look around. It's obviously there's been a robbery. Brinslow says that Brinslow sticks his head out the front door and tells the cop to, I don't know how they contacted other cops. He said, go back and bring the...
I think at this time they had call boxes mounted on
Police
lights.
That's
box.
right. That's what they would have had. Yeah. So go to the police box and call this in. There's been a murder. It's been about a month. We need to very carefully go over this and see if we can figure out who did this.
Well, that carpet's ruined.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming by. I'm very sorry that your friend is dead.
Thank you, Detective Brinslow, for not thinking us mad.
Well, please come down to the station tomorrow and make your statements.
Very well. And again, I hope that you find Willard Punchin alive and well.
We'll definitely look into that immediately. In fact, he says to the cop, he says, see what you can find on a Willard Punchin from Sussex. Yes, sir.
We might ought to want to give him a heads up about the curator too, just in case, to keep an eye on him and make sure nothing happens.
I feel like Thompson's very much decided to be on his own. And he's, a wealthy and
dishonest
and connected person. So I think if we tell a homicide cop we think he's the next victim, I don't know that. I think Thompson would be pissed. I don't know if we care. We have already stolen his journal.
He might have a few more things to say after he finds out that yet another person has been killed.
Well, I assume this is going to be in the paper tomorrow. It's pretty grisly.
Approved.
And he was already noting in his journal who was left. Meanwhile, we're busy on our way across town to commit our own crime.
So you guys are in the car and you're heading towards the Pinkers?
Yes, and we want 2 cars for this little adventure. And again, I think the idea is that Vadim and I will be in some sort of rear guard while you buttonhole this thug.
Correct.
Is that how it goes?
What does the
Listen
letter
to
say?
you, knowing the lingo.
Now that we're away from the cop, what does the letter say?
Are you going to read it?
Yes, I'm gonna read it.
All right.
Got a letter.
Oh man, someone read that. I don't read cursive very well.
2nd May, 1925, 85 Lavender Grove, Hackney, E8. Dear Terry, I am a shambles and dare not leave the house. You know the dreams we had in Nineveh once we'd opened that damn temple. Well, they've never stopped for me. Each night I have nightmares. I think it would be better if I could at least remember them. Then perhaps I could find a way to put them from my mind. But I awake, remembering nothing, just vague images of horror and a feeling of terrible dread. I don't think I've had a decent night's sleep for coming on 6 years. Are you the same? Damn Thompson and damn King. They should have left it alone. We should have left it alone. If there was a way to turn back the clock, I would take it. Something was in that temple. We woke it up. The curse is real. I should have left when Banksmith died. There should have been no way for those supports to give out. I didn't think at the time, didn't listen to the others with their tales of strange shadows and threats from the locals. If I'd have only believed. Someone is watching me. That's the point of me writing to you. I guess you'll just think it another of my delusions, but honestly, there are men watching the house. They look like the ones from Nineveh. I cannot go outside. Maybe it is a delusion, who knows? But I thought of you and to warn you in case it is them. I'm going to write to Thompson and Brightman too. If it is them, then at least I might do one right thing and warn them before it's too late. Yours, Peter.
So we can now state that there is a group actively, I mean, we already know, but now we can confirm there is a group actively trying to put an end to the people who are at the dig, and or trying to return all the artifacts that were uncovered.
And Reginald, you said you've been having bad nightmares?
Yes, I can't say that I don't remember anything, as Mr. Simpkin describes, but if this went on for 6 years, I would be cowering in the dark as well. I'm also worried about returning to my home or even the club. I really should not have let that fellow see the tag on my car.
No, but I think that the club, you're safe. I mean, you can come stay with me if you would like that. We'll leave your car at the club, and then you come and stay with me, so that they're at one location as opposed to another. But I would say that at the club, you're probably pretty safe.
It's also a possibility that if we don't have a luck meeting up with this Guido or whatever at the Pinkers or possibly at Simpkins, they might be staking out my home.
That is a good assumption.
Or even Sweet Relics, because he's being followed too. So how many are on the squad?
Then again, you mentioned Evie was at West End. You mentioned that she was in the West End, so they may be looking for her there.
I was just making up a local street name.
Yes, I know, but they don't know that.
But if it's not a real street, they can't. I mean, they can look for her there all they want, since I just made it up off the top of my head.
Or spend hours looking for it on a map.
The London map. It's pretty terrifying. So, gentlemen, we want a second vehicle. Who has vehicles? Do we all own cars? And who wants to drive?
We all own cars, I'd imagine.
Vadim, if you have a car, then we'll leave mine behind the club or something, so it's not recognizable.
Can do
We
that.
can take 2 new cars.
Yep, I'll take mine. And you guys, it's big enough to snatch somebody up.
Okay.
Do we need what do people take in these sort of circumstances? Truncheons and rope?
Bring in my Luger.
We were just I was just going to grab a tire iron.
Good heavens.
Well,
What's
I
in the
have
car
my
already?
trusty walking stick with me at all times, and I open my jacket, and you see there's a Mauser pistol on my on my chest.
I have my grandfather's pocket watch.
Well,
Sykes goes over and he opens up the Oriental weapons cabinet. Knives and swords and nunchucks. And
are there throwing stars?
of course. They're shaped like little W's so that they're for the Wentworth Club.
Nice.
All right, so you're heading over.
Yeah, if I'm picking up my car, I'm going to go up briefly into my quarters and or my one set of quarters I'm using, and pick up my 1911 and put that in my jacket.
Okay.
Reginald, do you know how to use a pistol, or
Yes, I fired a Derringer.
a cricket bat?
I can fire a handgun or a rifle. I don't have one, though. I'm not accustomed to these things.
All right. So I'm saying that you're approaching the neighborhood in 2 cars, you say.
Correct.
So how do you do this? What are you going to do?
I'm just going to slow roll past the house and not even stop or look that way.
Okay.
Not even, not look towards the house or anything else. We're just going to roll by.
As if you were just a car going by?
Yeah, through the neighborhood completely and unless they're on a cul-de-sac.
Drive by.
No,
Exactly.
it'd be a drive-by.
Yep.
When you turn onto the street where the Pinkers live, there's no activity at the Pinkers. They're probably still out. However, you do see that guy, the tall guy, down at the end of the block, just leaning up against the fence and smoking. And as you drive by him, he doesn't even pay any attention to you. He's obviously lost in thought.
All right, gents. Do you want to park right around the corner somewhere? One person stay with the vehicle, the other
Park
person.
right in front of him. Snatch him right off the street.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I want
to carry him too far.
Right, but I want to come up, drop me off, and I want to walk down the block behind him. You call him over to.
Assuming that drive-by meant that you continued past.
We did, but we're
I
going to
assume
come
that you
back
turned the
around.
corner, and Vadim and I have come up behind you, and we'll coordinate.
Right, right.
That is the fellow that was here before. So he is consistently loitering in the corner, and he's probably up to no good.
I've got
And there
this.
should be a plan.
I think I've got something going up here.
Okay.
So, like you said, Cyrus, we're going to drop you off. You come up and be ready behind him.
Correct.
We're going to pull in front of him. We're going to ask him to come towards the car for direction, or ask anything just to get him to come off that pole and lean down over towards the car. And you just come up and butt stock the back of his head with that pistol. We'll throw him in the back seat, get him strapped down real good, and by the time he wakes up, he'll be so far away from anything, he'll answer anything.
All right.
Although,
Now,
to remind you, Felix, when I asked him for directions, he just stayed where he was and said, piss off.
Well, in that case, Cyrus will pop him right off that pole, then we'll drag him to the car, and the rest will follow.
now, my next question for the GM: how populated is this street? Is it like?
It's the middle of the day on a work day. There's not people walking around. You don't see anybody.
What kind of area is this? Is this like the seedy area?
No,
is it
it's not a
affluent
bad area.
upscale?
It's a nice area. Yeah.
Look, we can just get him and hit him and grab him fast, and no one will be able to.
Let me
know what I'm
give you a little bit of tactics. He's on a street. He's leaning up against a fence. The only directions that he can go is to the left or to the right, or he can run out into the street, cross the street, and go somewhere. And there's places where he could go in between houses.
Right.
Right where he is, there's a fence. He can only go left or right. He can't go backwards.
All right, so let's do this. You guys pull up in front of him. As I come up from behind, I'm just going to crack him, and we're going to throw him in the car, and we're going to go. I'm not even going to speak to him.
Okay. You can't really come up from behind him.
I'll just...
You can come up from the left or the right.
Assuming the corner is on the left side, I'll come up from the right.
Okay.
With my cane, very hobbling. I'm
Okay.
walking with like a severe limp, dragging my foot and using my cane like I got a war wound.
Okay.
My knee doesn't work. Now, does he even look up as he hears my foot dragging?
So as this happens, the first thing he notices, of course, you walking in his way, in his direction, and he gets kind of an amused look on his face.
I figured.
Like, having a bit of trouble there, old timer.
I'm going to make it like I'm even like embarrassed or whatever, just kind of like trying to look away, like I don't want you looking at me. And
he looks like the kind of guy that would try to trip you.
That's what I was hoping for. So when I get within about 2 or 3 feet, the cane's just going to come up and I'm going to swing for the benches.
Okay, go ahead and do an attack. Now, where are the rest of you at that moment? Are you pulling up in front?
Yeah,
right in front of him.
All right. So you've pulled up right in front of him.
And Vadim and I are at the corner, leaning through the windscreen, watching it all.
Okay.
Taking the back just in case if he runs.
I don't think that you could really miss. So if you miss, do another roll.
I got an 11.
Oh, okay.
And that, it is extreme.
All right. You hit him right in the gut. And the look on his face is priceless. He's so surprised. And but he's doubled over in pain.
And just run with him towards the car, if possible.
Okay. So this is just as who's driving the car and who's getting out?
I'm driving it.
I'm getting out.
So Fuller, he's coming right at you, and with the two of you, you can easily shuffle him into the car. And he's cussing up a storm, and he's struggling, but he's in agony.
Get him in the car.
Jump right in behind him.
Slide up right beside him. Stick the Luger in his rib cage. And
I was like, dude,
shut up.
I don't want no trouble. No trouble. Come on. What the hell?
I'm just going to drive. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just driving.
Out of town.
And I'm going to wave. I'm waving to Reginald and Vadim as we go by. Come on.
Get out of town.
I'm going to say, the place, the docks. We could dump the body easily.
We're headed to the docks.
Holy shit, look. I don't know what you guys are up to. I mean, I ain't got no money.
Shake him down, Cyrus.
Yeah, I start, hold that pistol on him, and I start running his pockets. Empty your pockets. And, keep your hands up. I'm emptying everything out of all of his pockets.
All right.
And not nicely either. I'll rip the pocket open if I need to.
He does have a wad of cash. Looks like about $40. It's a big wad of cash. $40 back there. Or not bucks.
In fact, even better. I go, this isn't about money, and I throw it right out the window.
What do you guys want? I'm fucking nobody.
Yeah, you're nobody. What's your fucking name?
Stuart.
Stuart? Okay, Stuart.
Oh, you're a dick. I like that.
why are you standing out there? And I just jab him in the face. I don't let him answer. That not quick enough, bitch.
Look, we're just.
Where? Who's we?
Uh,
Boom, again, not quick enough, buddy. When I speak, you answer. And I wrap him in the head again. Now, next time, it's going to be with the gun.
Look, we're supposed to watch those people across the street because we were told that we're looking for things.
Charlie, you think he's telling the truth, Charlie?
No. Sounds like he's making things up. I've never known a man named Stewart to tell the truth.
I click the gun. Stewart, this isn't a good situation, buddy.
Dude, we were just. I don't think he says, dude.
Yeah.
Look. We were just supposed to be looking for artifacts, things
Bobby,
like from.
Who sent you? First of all.
Look, I ain't gonna rat out the guy that hired us. There's no way.
3, 2.
No. Look, the things he could do to me. There's no way. There's no way that I can tell you that.
He can give you lead poisoning? Because you're about to get lead poisoning. I guess we're not getting answers out of you. All right, you know what? Let's just dump the body here. Fuck it. And no, I'm not going to shoot him. I'm pretending that, I want him to piss his pants and speak.
Not on the car, man.
Oh, we'll dump this and burn the car and get a new one.
Excellent.
Look, this guy, he employs me to keep a lookout for certain things, things like you'd find at a museum. And he said anything from some place called Nineveh. That was what we were supposed to look for.
Now I grab his wrist. I go, "What's his name?" And I snap his pinky finger.
Look, I don't know what his name is. He's a wealthy guy, a collector.
Crack. I break the finger. You don't know his name?
You son of a bitch.
You've met her? And I grab his next finger.
I'm just giggling.
He's like, God, I can't. He said,
his name?
He said, listen, just swear to God. Oh, God. It just hurts.
All right, you got 8 fingers left. I'm gonna start cutting them off now.
All right. I tell you, please, God, don't break any of my fingers.
Well, 2 are broken. You got 8 left, so I'm not gonna break anymore. I'm just gonna start cutting them off.
Okay. He says, look. He says, all I know is, and he looks at you in the face, and he suddenly smiles. Except you realize he's not smiling. He's gritting his teeth really tightly, and his eyes are getting big, and he goes like that and just spews blood all over you. And he's shaking, and he just collapses dead. And there's blood all over the inside of the car and all over you.
Sanity?
Cyrus,
Should I do a sanity roll?
Did you shoot the guy? Yeah.
No, I think he just poisoned
Actually,
himself.
everybody in the car.
Yeah,
Actually,
we just tortured this guy. We're gonna have to make a sanity roll.
28.
40.
Good.
Yeah,
And
I
those
made
of you
it.
following in the other car, you're like going, oh, everything just turned red.
Vadim, did he swerve a bit there?
I slam on the brakes when that happened.
All
I
right.
swear I didn't shoot him.
No.
I swear I didn't shoot him.
Stop in the car.
The
Keep an
look
eye
on
out
the
for
guy's
red.
face, the good look on the guy's face is like one of absolute sheer terror. And it doesn't look like he swallowed anything.
No, he didn't swallow anything.
And
Windows are rolled up, right?
when you look at him, he's all bruised all over.
Out of curiosity, at this time in history, would people have driver's license?
Probably.
I want to look at his driver's license and see what his name really is.
He doesn't have any driver's license.
Oh.
And they didn't have pictures on them. It was just like a card with a name and a number, I believe.
I just wanted to know if this was Guido.
I just really want to get some club soda on this before it stains
Yeah.
the interior.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it. With you
Call the
guys
fixer.
all covered in blood.
Call the
Yeah,
fixer.
this ain't going to be, call the fixer, because this ain't going to come out very easily. Our players included Jason Melnichuk, John Byram, Ford Fitch, Jerry Bryant, and David Gassaway, with yours truly as the keeper of the secrets. We're currently producing up to 5 shows a week with music and sound effects added in post-production in order to create a richer listener experience. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. The costs involved with the show are provided almost entirely by our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If you'd like to support our show, visit our Patreon account. Just $1 or $2 a month helps us a lot. You can find a link in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel and punch that bell icon for updates on our latest shows, and leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.